I used to think I was one of the lucky ones. I had a stable tech job, a 2-bedroom apartment just outside of Austin, and a girlfriend who turned heads everywhere we went. Her name was Madison, Maddie for short. Blonde hair that looked like it came out of a shampoo commercial, that effortless hot yoga body, and a smile that made waiters forget what they'd come to the table for. We met at a friend's lake house party 2 summers ago and moved in together within 6 months. It felt fast, but right. That's what love's supposed to feel like, right? For the longest time, I didn't question anything. Maddie worked part-time at a boutique and taught a couple of yoga classes at a nearby studio. Her schedule was light and flexible. Mine wasn't. I'd usually be knee-deep in code, late-night bug fixes, or sprint planning. She was always off to yoga in the evenings, sometimes coming back home flushed and sweaty, dropping her mat by the door and smiling as she peeled off her hoodie. I never questioned it. I never had a reason to. It started with something small. One night, she came home later than usual. Nothing crazy, just 30 minutes past when she said she'd be back. But it was the way she avoided my eyes when I asked how class went. Just a quick, "Oh, it was good," before changing the subject. I noticed she hadn't brought her yoga mat in. When I asked, she said she left it in the car because it was damp from the studio's floors. Still, I told myself I was being paranoid. Everyone has off days. But I started to pay attention. A week later, she said she was heading to her usual Thursday night vinyasa class. She left at 6:15. At 6:35, I opened Google Maps on my phone. Don't ask me why, I just did. We'd shared locations with each other early in the relationship, mainly for safety. I never really looked before, but now I did, and my stomach dropped. She wasn't near the yoga studio. Her little blue dot was parked near a hotel off the I-35, the Marlowe Inn. It was a 3-star place, not the kind you'd accidentally end up at. I watched the dot sit there, unmoving, for 20 minutes, 30. I took screenshots. The first dozen were shaky, my hands wouldn't stop trembling. I kept refreshing. At 8:11, her dot started moving again, this time toward the yoga studio. She stayed there for 15 minutes, probably long enough to be seen walking out in case someone was watching. When she came home, her mat was in hand, damp towel draped over her shoulder like usual. I asked, "How was class?" She smiled, like nothing was wrong. Pluck. Sweaty. Perfect. I didn't sleep that night. I stared at the ceiling, listening to her breathe, my mind spinning. I wanted to believe there was a reasonable explanation. Maybe she was picking up something from someone. Maybe she got lost. Maybe it was nothing. But something inside me, the part of me that worked with systems and logic and traceable patterns, knew better. So I started doing what I do best, collecting data. The next day, I created a new Google account. I paired it to an old Pixel 3 I had in a drawer, disabled all notifications, and dropped it in the spare tire compartment of her trunk. I gave it its own power bank and toggled on location history. Every move she made would now log into timeline. Silent, invisible. Over the next week, Maddie went to yoga 5 times. 0 of those trips ended at the studio. Each time, the blue dot ended up at that same hotel, always between 6:30 and 8:15, sometimes later. Once, she didn't leave until almost 9. And each time she came back with her hair tied up, her body glistening with fake sweat. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I wanted proof. Irrefutable proof. So I escalated. I bought an AirTag and slipped it under the passenger seat of her car, using a piece of Velcro and a strip of black felt to deaden the sound. If she had an iPhone, she might have gotten notified about the tag moving with her, but she didn't. Maddie was Android all the way. With the AirTag, I tracked the exact parking spot she used at the Marlowe. Room 217, based on where her car was always parked. That gave me everything I needed to move forward. The next Thursday, I drove to the hotel myself. I parked across the street at a closed diner and waited. At 6:24 p.m., Maddie's car rolled into the lot. I watched her step out in her leggings, hoodie, and flip-flops. Hair up. No mat in sight. She didn't even glance around. She just moved straight toward room 217, unlocked it with a key card, and disappeared inside. I waited another 5 minutes. Then I walked over. I knocked. Just once. Silence. Then muffled voices. I knocked again. Louder. The door cracked open maybe 2 inches. A man's face peeked out, mid-30s, bearded, shirtless. His eyes went wide. "Can I help you?" he asked. I didn't answer. just looked past him. "Maddie," I said, "you forgot your mat." She appeared behind him in a hotel robe, hair down, no makeup. Her mouth dropped open like she'd seen a ghost. "Eli," she said, "what are you?" I turned and walked away, and that's when the real unraveling began. I didn't go home right away. I drove aimlessly for hours, hands clenched so tight on the wheel, my knuckles went white. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just shut down. My mind started splitting everything in two. Before and after that hotel door opened. Before, the life I thought we had. After, a shattered illusion barely holding shape. By the time I finally pulled into our apartment complex, it was past midnight. Her car wasn't there. I went upstairs, sat on the edge of our bed, and stared at the framed photo on our dresser, us at Big Bend National Park, all smiles and wind in our hair. I remember she begged me to hike all the way to the summit just for that picture. I almost threw the frame against the wall. Instead, I turned it face down and sat in silence until I heard her key in the door. She walked in like she expected a war zone, keys trembling in her hand. She looked different, deflated. "Eli, please, can we just talk?" I didn't say anything at first, just let the silence eat her alive. Finally, "How long?" Her mouth opened, closed. She sat on the edge of the coffee table across from me, curling into herself like a child. "A couple months," she whispered. That was a lie. I already had over 5 weeks of data. She must have known I knew. "With him?" She nodded. "Who is he?" She hesitated, then muttered, "Trevor. He comes to the studio sometimes after class." That didn't line up. She hadn't been going to class. That told me everything I needed to know about how deep the lies went. "I'm sorry," she said. "It just happened. I didn't mean for it to." I held up a hand. Don't say that." She started crying then. Not loud sobs, just silent, shaking grief, like the weight of her own guilt was too much to hold. But I didn't feel sorry for her. I felt like I was watching a stranger fall apart. I stood, grabbed my laptop bag, and walked toward the door. "Where are you going?" she asked, standing too. "To sleep somewhere I don't feel like a fucking idiot." She flinched. I'd never raised my voice to her before. I didn't slam the door, though I wanted to. I just left. The next day, I called in sick. I spent it gathering everything. Screenshots, GPS history, the AirTag logs, timestamps of hotel check-ins. Not to shame her, not to post it online. I just needed to see it all for myself. I needed something concrete to hold on to, because the emotional part of my brain was completely offline. That night, she texted me, "I'll move out tomorrow. I'm so sorry, Eli. You didn't deserve this." I didn't respond. She left while I was at work. When I came back, the closet was half empty, her dresser drawers open and hollow. The apartment felt quieter than I'd ever imagined possible. But she left one thing behind, her old Android phone. The one I remembered she stopped using a few months ago when she upgraded. She must have forgotten it was still in the bottom drawer of the nightstand. Normally I wouldn't have touched it, but something gnawed at me. I charged it. No lock screen, no biometric, just a PIN, 0421, our anniversary. What I found there made everything worse. There were texts, archived and muted, that she clearly hadn't deleted. "Trevor, you looked amazing in that robe last night. Wish we didn't have to sneak around." He's starting to get suspicious. I don't know how much longer I can keep this up. Just tell him already, or don't. I like the secrecy. Further down, pictures, screenshots of my texts shared between them. Jokes, emojis, him calling me Captain Beta and yoga boyfriend, her laughing, and one audio clip. I stared at it for a long time before hitting play. It was from one of their hotel stays. Trevor's voice, breathy, laughing. "He really thinks you're at hot yoga? Jesus," Maddie said. "I don't even bring my mat anymore." Then Trevor, "You're such a bad girl," she giggled. Then a pause, and Maddie again, "You love it." The audio ended. I didn't even feel anger anymore, just a cold, clinical kind of detachment, like a coroner performing an autopsy. This wasn't just cheating. This was betrayal laced with mockery, like I was a punchline in a story I didn't even know I was part of. I copied everything to a flash drive, locked it in my desk. Then I wiped her old phone, factory reset, bagged it and left it on the porch of her sister's place. I changed the locks 2 days later, but something in me didn't let go. Because Trevor? He wasn't just some fling. There were too many signs, recurring names, odd receipts on our joint bank account from months back, ones I hadn't looked closely at before. A Venmo payment from Maddie labeled massage oils, sent to an unfamiliar username that now I suspected might have been his burner. So I started digging into him. And what I found made the rest of this story look like child's play. Trevor Ross wasn't just some random guy from yoga class. The more I dug, the more it felt like I had tripped into something deeper, darker than just an affair. He didn't show up in Maddie's social media anywhere. No likes, no comments, no tags. Almost like he didn't exist. But when I ran his name through a few of the OSINT tools I'd picked up during a security audit gig last year, pieces started surfacing. A LinkedIn with 0 connections. An Instagram with no posts but over 800 followers. All bots. A public records scrape turned up a traffic ticket under the name Trevor L. Ross, tied to a P.O. box in San Antonio. Then a real lead. An old meetup event page for an Austin creative breathwork retreat from 8 months ago, hosted by someone named Trevor Ross. The banner image showed a group of about 20 people in loose yoga gear, sitting cross-legged in a circle at what looked like a rented house. Maddie was there, smiling next to him. I pulled the EXIF data from the image and got the GPS coordinates. I drove out the next day. The house was off a dirt road west of Dripping Springs. Big place, nestled behind a gate with a keypad lock. No cars in the driveway, no movement. I didn't get out. Just sat there staring at it for a long time. Then I pulled up my laptop and checked the pixel tracker I'd hidden in Maddie's trunk weeks ago. It was still active, still logging movement. One entry caught my eye. 3 weeks before the hotel surveillance started, she'd driven out here, stayed for 6 hours. I went back through my screenshots. That was the same night she told me she had a private yoga client who'd rescheduled last minute. She said she was doing a candlelit flow in someone's backyard. I felt sick. I drove home. But I didn't stop. I kept researching. I wasn't even sure what I was looking for anymore. Proof of what? That they'd been seeing each other longer than she admitted? That she'd been manipulating me the entire time? That I was a fool? But what I found next changed everything. Buried in an old Reddit thread about sketchy wellness retreats in Texas, I found a post from a burner account. Anyone know what's really going on at the Ross retreats in Dripping Springs? My ex came back from one of them and was never the same. Super emotionally distant, talked about energetic bonding with some guy who leads breathwork. She started lying, hiding money, gaslighting me constantly. Then she vanished. The post was 2 years old, no replies, no updates, but it hit like a brick. I scrolled through the comments, nothing useful, but I copied the username and ran it through a few tools. No hits on social. But it had used the same alias on a backup account in a photography forum. That account had an email, and the email had a Gravatar profile. A small, blurry image, but recognizable. The guy in that photo had been standing 3 people over from Maddie in that retreat picture. So I wasn't the only one. I started to suspect that Trevor was more than just a yoga groupie or breathwork junkie. Something about him felt calculated, like this was a pattern, a game. Maddie wasn't just cheating, she was part of something, whether she realized it or not. A few nights later, I got the final confirmation I didn't know I was looking for. It was around 2 a.m. I couldn't sleep. Again. I was flipping through the files I'd archived from her old phone, trying to organize everything chronologically, when I saw something I'd missed, a hidden folder buried in a backup of her messaging app. It had 2 videos. The first one was glitchy, barely audible, but the second, it was a recording taken in a dimly lit room. Maddie was on a mat, eyes closed, breathing heavy. Candlelight flickered off her skin. In the background, a voice spoke softly, rhythmically, like some kind of chant. Trevor, let go of your past. Let go of your anchor. There is no truth but this breath. No one owns you. Then silence. Her breathing changed, faster, like panting. The video cut out. I sat there frozen. This wasn't some affair. This was something designed. Orchestrated, manipulative. I finally understood. This man had been running a cult-like operation disguised as wellness, and Maddie, either willingly or not, had become one of his pawns. Maybe she believed in it. Maybe she just wanted to believe in something. But what mattered now was that it wasn't over. Because there was one last clip Maddie had recorded and never sent. A draft, stored in her voice memos. If anything happens to me, if I disappear or ghost you or act strange, it's not what it looks like. Just know that. Please. I don't even know if I can say this out loud, but Trevor, he's not who he says he is. I made a mistake. A big one. I'm sorry. Then static and nothing else. I sat there until sunrise. The next day, I called a friend of mine at the cybersecurity firm I used to contract with. I told him, I need help, and I think someone else is in danger. He didn't even hesitate. My friend's name was Jordan, ex-military, now a digital forensics analyst with more side projects than hours in the day. When I laid everything out, Maddie, Trevor, the retreat house, the recordings, he didn't blink. He said we'd need to move fast and quiet. If this guy was running a network of manipulation under the guise of spiritual healing, there were likely others caught in it. And if Maddie had tried to break free, well, we didn't know what Trevor was capable of. We started by scrubbing metadata from the videos and voice clips, matching timestamps, extracting location markers. Maddie had recorded that voice memo 3 weeks before I ever found out about the hotel. That meant she'd known. Maybe she even wanted out. But something stopped her. Or someone. Jordan ran Trevor's known email address through dark web monitoring tools, found links to old aliases. One of them flagged in a data leak tied to fraudulent retreat payments, mostly from women who disappeared from social media soon after. One of the aliases had hosted servers tied to a private Discord group. We couldn't access it directly, invite-only and end-to-end encrypted, but we traced a public channel linked to it through archived invite links. That's where we found them. Dozens of women. Comments vague and filled with coded language, healing ceremonies, energetic surrender, breath binding. All carefully worded, but the pattern was clear. Emotional breakdown, dependence, detachment from friends and family. Then, silence. Jordan looked at me over the top of his laptop. This guy is not just cheating with your girl. He's creating obedience, and he's been doing it for years. We gathered everything, built a report. Jordan had connections, quiet ones in law enforcement. We handed it over. That was the hard part. Letting go. Trusting the system to do something. But there was one thing I had to do first. I reached out to Maddie. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want to scream. I just wanted to know if she was okay. She didn't answer my first call or my second. But later that night, I got a message from an unknown number. Eli, I know you saw everything. I can't talk, not really. But thank you for looking. I didn't think anyone would. He's gone now, I think, I hope. Don't try to find me. I need to figure out who I am again. I'm sorry I hurt you. That was it. I never heard from her again. A few weeks later, I got word, quiet, off the record, that Trevor Ross was under investigation for multiple counts of coercion, fraud, and illegal surveillance. The retreat house was raided. Several women gave statements. Maddie wasn't among them. I still don't know where she went. Maybe somewhere quiet, somewhere she can breathe without being told how to. I hope so. As for me, I moved. New city, new job. Took a break from relationships. I still catch myself glancing at maps sometimes, instinctively checking that little blue dot. But there's nothing there anymore. No trail, no signal, just silence. Sometimes when it's quiet enough, I hear her voice in that final recording. I made a mistake. A big one. But so did I. I trusted without question. Now I question everything. But maybe that's what survival looks like, learning to see the smoke before the fire. And walking away before you burn. It was a Thursday morning when I finally let it go. I stood on the shoreline of Lake Travis, wind cutting through my jacket, sun just starting to rise behind the hills. The air was sharp and quiet, too early for boats or tourists. Just me, the lake, and the flash drive in my hand. All the evidence, the texts, the GPS trails, the recordings, her voice. I dropped it into the water, watched it sink. For a long time, I'd thought holding on to all that would give me control. Like if I could just understand it all, map it out, dissect every lie, I could undo the damage. But the truth is, knowing why doesn't make the betrayal hurt less. It doesn't rebuild the version of yourself you were before someone cracked you open like that. It just gives you a sharper image to mourn. I walked back to my car, half expecting some rush of relief. It didn't come. But I felt lighter. Just a little. Over the next few months, I started building again. Reconnected with old friends I'd ghosted during the chaos. Picked up running. Started therapy. Not because I was broken, but because I wanted to understand the part of me that let it all slide until it collapsed. The part that didn't listen to the silence in our relationship when it was screaming the truth. I met someone eventually. Slow, cautious. She didn't ask about Maddie, and I didn't offer. Some things don't need to be unpacked on the first date, or the fifth. But when I told her one night, just a little, about how close I came to losing myself in someone else's control, she didn't flinch. She just said, "The fact that you came back from that says more than the story itself." And maybe that's the lesson. It's not just about catching the lie or exposing the person who wronged you. It's about what you do with the truth once it's in your hands. Some truths are heavy. Some burn, but some set you free. And that's what this was in the end. Freedom. Hard-earned, scarred up, no illusions left, but real.